Imagine waking up tomorrow to a news alert so seismic it rewrites the global financial order overnight. Your phone blows up with notifications, news anchors are speaking in hushed, urgent tones, and a single, staggering number flashes across every screen: the Iraqi dinar has just been revalued. Not by pennies, but by a figure that turns everyday citizens into millionaires and reshapes the entire wealth landscape of the planet. This isn't a drill. This is the silent countdown we've been warning you about, and the clock is ticking down faster than anyone in the mainstream is willing to admit. For years, we've been told this was a fantasy, a pipe dream for the desperate and the gullible, dismissed by so-called experts who are either blissfully ignorant or deliberately misleading the public to protect the crumbling pillars of the old financial system. But what if I told you that the blueprint for this historic event has already been drawn? What if the map to this untold wealth isn't a metaphor, but a tangible, traceable network of financial decisions, geopolitical maneuvers, and economic data points that all converge on a single, inevitable conclusion in 2025? The evidence is no longer hidden in shadowy forums or whispered in secret meetings, it's buried in plain sight within the financial infrastructure of Iraq and Vietnam themselves, and today we are going to connect the dots so clearly that you will never look at your current bank balance the same way again. Let's start with the Iraqi dinar, the sleeping giant of the currency world. For decades, it has been artificially suppressed, a necessity following the turmoil of war and sanctions, a currency held down to allow for the rebuilding of a nation. But that chapter is closing. The war is over. The nation is stabilizing. And Iraq is sitting on a resource that the world desperately needs: oil, and lots of it. But here's the critical piece that the mainstream narrative ignores: a nation's currency is a reflection of its economic strength and sovereign integrity, and Iraq is rapidly checking every box on the list for a full revaluation. They have been working tirelessly with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank on financial reforms, not for fun, but as a mandatory prerequisite for reinstating their currency to its true, tradable value. They have been pushing to remove their currency from the internationally controlled program rate and establish a true, market-driven value. Think about that for a moment. Why go through the immense trouble of these complex financial reforms if the plan was to keep the dinar at its current value? It makes no logical sense. The only logical conclusion is that this is the final staging ground. Furthermore, look at the physical currency itself. The large, cumbersome notes are a hallmark of a devalued currency, and the Central Bank of Iraq has been actively discussing a redenomination or a lopping of the zeros for years. This process is not about making the currency weaker, it is the final, crucial step taken by nations before they launch a strong, new currency value. It is a logistical necessity to facilitate everyday commerce once the value skyrockets. You don't prepare for an event that isn't coming. And the preparations are everywhere. Major international banking corporations have been quietly updating their digital systems to handle the Iraqi dinar, not as exotic, non-tradable currency, but as a standard, international currency code. These are multi-million-dollar software updates. Banks don't make those investments for a fantasy. They are positioning themselves for the inevitable flood of transactions. The silence from the mainstream media is, in fact, the loudest evidence of all. Why would they report on it? To cause a global bank run on the dinar before the elite and the institutions have finished their own positioning. The truth is being kept quiet to allow for the most massive, covert wealth transfer in human history to be set up without public panic or interference. The pieces are all on the board. The economic reforms, the geopolitical agreements with neighboring nations for trade in dinar, the banking infrastructure upgrades, and the tangible movement towards deleting the large denomination notes, this isn't speculation anymore. This is a coordinated, strategic plan entering its final phase. The silent countdown isn't a theory, it is the quiet hum of the global financial machine recalibrating itself for a new reality, and if you are listening to this right now, you are among the few who are positioned to witness and benefit from the dawn of a new financial age. Now, let's pivot to the other powerhouse in this global financial reset, the Vietnamese dong, because understanding the synergy between these two currencies is the key to seeing the entire picture. While the world has been obsessing over the dinar, Vietnam has been executing one of the most spectacular and silent economic metamorphoses in modern history, building a foundation so strong that its currency's revaluation isn't just likely, it's a mathematical certainty. Think of Vietnam not as an emerging economy, but as the new manufacturing and technological hub of the world, a title that is being rapidly stripped away from China. Major global corporations like Apple, Samsung, and Intel are not just dipping their toes in Vietnamese waters, they are moving billions of dollars in production capacity there, building megafactories and establishing Vietnam as the irreplaceable core of their future supply chains. This isn't a minor shift, it's a tectonic move in global trade, and it creates an unprecedented surge of foreign capital and demand for the Vietnamese dong that the current exchange rate simply cannot reflect for much longer. The dong, much like the dinar, is grossly undervalued, acting as a strategic tool to fuel this explosive export-led growth, but that tool has a limited shelf life. Once a nation achieves a certain level of economic maturity and foreign investment saturation, it must allow its currency to strengthen to combat inflation, increase its citizens' purchasing power on the global stage, and solidify its status as a developed, sovereign economic power. Vietnam is hitting that inflection point right now. Look at the data they don't want you to focus on. Vietnam's GDP growth has consistently been among the highest in the world, its foreign exchange reserves are at an all-time high and climbing, and it has maintained remarkable political stability in a volatile region. These are the fundamental pillars that support a strong currency. But the real smoking gun, the center map we exposed in the title, lies in Vietnam's strategic infrastructure and digital transformation. The State Bank of Vietnam has been aggressively promoting a cashless society, not just for convenience, but as a critical control mechanism. By moving transactions into the digital realm, they create a seamless, traceable, and instantaneous system through which a new currency value can be activated with the flip of a switch. Imagine a nationwide software update that recalibrates every digital wallet and bank account overnight. This digital framework is the center map, it's the operational blueprint for the revaluation. Furthermore, Vietnam has been deepening its ties with international financial institutions and entering into sophisticated bilateral trade agreements that deliberately bypass the US dollar, agreements that will necessitate a stronger, more credible dong to function effectively. The narrative that these currencies are weak is a dangerous illusion. Their current low value is a temporary, strategic posture. The calm before the storm of their true potential is unleashed. The Vietnamese government knows that to become the high-income economy it aspires to be, it needs a currency that reflects that status. You cannot be a global economic leader with a currency that is perceived as weak. The revaluation of the dong is, therefore, a non-negotiable component of Vietnam's national destiny. It is the final piece of the puzzle that will unlock unprecedented wealth for its citizens and for those international investors who were wise enough to see the pattern. The silence from Western financial media on Vietnam's rise is equally deafening, because admitting the dong's potential would trigger a capital influx that would destabilize their own controlled markets. They are trying to keep the lid on this for as long as possible. But the pressure building beneath that lid is immense, fueled by manufacturing might, technological adoption, and strategic foresight. The Vietnamese dong is not the poor cousin of the Iraqi dinar in this equation. It is an equally powerful, parallel engine of wealth creation, operating on the same trajectory but powered by a different, equally potent fuel. The countdown for the dong is synchronized with the dinar, because together, they represent a fundamental challenge to the financial old guard, a one-two punch that will redefine what it means to be wealthy in the 21st century. So, where does this leave us, the everyday people watching from the sidelines, armed with this explosive knowledge? It leaves us at the most critical juncture in modern financial history, standing on the precipice of a change so profound that the terms rich and poor are about to be completely redefined. The silent countdown is not just about Iraq and Vietnam, it is about you and your family's future. The revaluation of the dinar and the dong is the key that will unlock the door to a global monetary reset, a system where wealth is not just transferred but created anew and distributed to those who had the vision to see the signs and the courage to act upon them. Think of this not as a mere investment opportunity, but as a once-in-a-lifetime paradigm shift, a cosmic correction in the financial matrix that will level the playing field for millions who have been left behind by the traditional systems of wealth creation. The evidence we've laid out is irrefutable, from the stringent IMF reforms and the banking infrastructure upgrades for the dinar to the explosive economic growth and digital transformation paving the way for the dong. The roadmap is clear and the destination is undeniable. The year 2025 is not a random date plucked from thin air. It is the logical convergence point for all these meticulously orchestrated plans to reach their climax. The economic reforms will be complete, the digital payment infrastructures will be fully operational, and the geopolitical pressure to establish a new, multipolar financial world order will be irresistible. This is the endgame. But here is the hard truth that you must internalize right now: knowing this information is only half the battle. The other half, the most crucial half, is taking immediate and decisive action. The window of opportunity is still open, but with every passing day, as this information slowly seeps into the public consciousness, that window gets smaller and smaller. The moment this revaluation is officially announced, the gates will slam shut forever. There will be no second chances, no opportunities to get in at the ground floor. The global elite and the major financial institutions are already positioned, they have been for years. Your only advantage is your knowledge and your timing. Do not fall into the trap of analysis paralysis, overthinking this until the opportunity vanishes. Do not